got a drill, people. Mental Misstep is back. I repeat, Mental Misstep is back, and that means Modern is compromised. Hey, wait a minute. This isn't Mental Misstep. Minor Misstep. Is this card good? Better check with the internet. Oh, it's either destroyed Modern forever or done nothing at all. Let's discuss. So this is the card everyone is talking about, Minor Misstep, 1 blue mana for an instant that reads, counter target spell with mana value 1 or less. The big comparison here is, of course, to Mental Misstep, a card banned in both Legacy and Modern, though as I'm about to discuss, the real comparison is to a spell called Spell Snare, but with all the hype Minor Misstep has been getting, you'd think the card was about to turn Modern on its head, but honestly, I'm not so sure. Certainly flavor-wise, it is reminiscent of its predecessor, Mental Misstep, but how good is this card really? Mental Misstep was an absolute blight not just on Modern, but on the game of Magic the Gathering as a whole. Despite technically being a blue card, Misstep was effectively colorless since any deck could pay the alternate casting cost of 2 life. And since every deck could play Mental Misstep, every deck had to play Mental Misstep. You needed Mental Misstep not just to counter your opponent's 1-mana spells, but also to counter your opponent's Mental Misstep. Trust me, there's no phrase more miserable in Magic the Gathering than misstep your misstep. Minor Misstep, on the other hand, is nowhere close to Mental Misstep, but given that Mental Misstep is one of the most broken Magic cards printed in the 21st century, it is reasonable that many Magic the Gathering players have asked the question, is Minor Misstep actually going to have a major impact on the Modern format? That is the topic of today's video, as well as several more cards from Phyrexia, All Will Be One, that are likely to see play in Modern. But first, I would like to give you this. That's right, thanks to Whatnot, I'll be giving away this collector booster box of Dominaria Remastered to someone anywhere in the world this Monday, January 30th at 3 p.m. Pacific on Whatnot. Just use my invite code at whatnot.com/invite/Tolarian College, and you'll also get $15 to spend towards anything you want on Whatnot. And one thing that Whatnot has is Magic cards. So yeah, just take the $15 and use it however you want on Magic cards on Whatnot. That's pretty nice, huh? Whatnot is basically like if eBay and Twitch had a baby. People just live stream their auctions of items. Some at buy it now prices, some just starting at $1. And there's many Magic the Gathering products like singles and booster packs and other sealed products. And with $15, well, you know what a Magic pack costs. Or just use it towards a commander deck or the single that you've had your eye on. It's $15. Just use my code to get that $15. Whatnot.com/invite/Tolarian College, or just show up this Monday, January 30th at 3 p.m. Pacific for the Collector Booster Box giveaway on my Whatnot stream. I'll be giving away some other cool Magic the Gathering products as well, and I've got a few things I might be auctioning off. You can use your $15 credit on my stream or any stream, anything on Whatnot. Go check it out. It's $15. Come on, and giving you. Did you see my video where I opened a collector booster? I actually did it. Did you see it? It was, yeah, it's nothing to sneeze at. There's whatnot.com/invite/Tolarian College. $15? Yeah, come on. It's fine. Yeah, anyway, let's talk Modern, and Phyrexia All Will Be One. Thank you, Whatnot, sponsor of the video. In understanding the potential impact Minor Misstep will have on the Modern format, I'd like to begin by comparing it to the existing card it is actually most similar to, and as I hinted at, that is not Mental Misstep, but rather Spell Snare. Spell Snare is also a 1-mana blue instant that counters a spell that meets a mana value criteria. Which of these two is a better card, would you say? Well, Minor Misstep can hit cards with mana value 1 or 0, while Spell Snare only hits cards with mana value 2. There are certainly more relevant modern cards at 1 mana than at 2, and when you include 0 mana value cards like the Suspend cards, your range of targets is wider for Minor Misstep than for Spell Snare, but that's not the full picture. See, Spell Snare always trades up on mana, whereas Minor Misstep rarely does. If your opponent taps 2 mana for, say, a Wrenn and 6, and you Spell Snare it, that's a very profitable exchange for you. If they pay 1 mana on a Lightning Bolt and you Minor Misstep it, that's just a net even exchange. The problem is you have to hold up that mana in order to cast Minor Misstep. And if your opponent doesn't cast a spell that can be countered by Minor Misstep, then you've wasted that mana for the turn. The other problem is many of the spells that are the most important to counter in Modern cost more than 1 mana. Pure Still Paladin, Murktide Regent, Teferi the Time Reveler, Underworld Breach, the aforementioned Wrenn and 6, the list just goes on. And of the 1 mana spells that do matter, such as Ragavan Nimble Pilferer, Dragon's Rage Channeler, Esper Sentinel, Sigarda's Aid or Amulet of Vigor, etc., well, these often come down turn 1, and in order to counter these cards on the turn they most often come down, you'd need to already have open mana available. If you are going second with a misstep in hand, you could easily find yourself in a position where your opponent sneaks their 1-drop in before you can even hold up mana. And if you were going first, are you really holding up Minor Misstep, or are you deploying your own Ragavan or other turn 1 threat? Now, granted, there are circumstances where Minor Misstep is a great answer spell. Misstep is an excellent way to counter a dashed Ragavan, and if your opponent is casting Living End or Crashing Footfalls, they probably spent 3 mana on that effect in order to cascade into their Suspend card. In these instances, Minor Misstep does trade profitably mana-wise. The question of whether or not Minor Misstep sees play in Modern will hinge on whether these situations happen frequently enough to be worth spending a slot in your deck on a misstep. What I think is most likely is that Minor Misstep will be a role player in Modern, possibly as a sideboard card, or as a 1 or 2 of in blue main decks. I do not believe we're looking at a game changer in the format. Repeat, I think it will see some play, but it's not going to shake things up dramatically. In fact, there are 5 other cards in Phyrexia All Will Be One that I think will be stronger in Modern than Minor Misstep. What are they? Well, coming in at number 5, Venerated Rotpriest is a 1/2 Phyrexian Druid for 1 green mana with Toxic 1. Whenever a creature you control becomes the target of a spell, your opponent gets a poison counter, which of course means if you can target 10 of your own creatures with spells while the Rotpriest is in play, your opponent loses the game. Now, if only there was an easy way to target your own creatures with spells multiple times. Hello? Oh, it's Ground Rift, a storm card that can target and just for 1 mana. Twitch streamer and Shuffle Up and Play competitor Aspiring Spike has built Ground Rift decks in Modern before. Previously to pump a clever Luminancer to absurdly tall heights. Link in the description. The concept here is the same. Generate at least 8 Storm, then cast your Rotpriest, then cast Ground Rift, targeting Rotpriest 10 times. Boom! You've built your own Tendrils of Agony. The best part? Rotpriest is green, meaning you can build your deck with a playset of Summoner's Pact, which find your Rotpriest for 0 mana and generate Storm along the way. No need to worry about the Pact trigger on your next turn. You won't have a next turn, because your opponent will be dead. The shell of a Gruul Storm deck already exists in Modern thanks to the red rituals: Manamorphous, Goblin Anarchomancer, Underworld Breach, and Past in Flames. But whereas before you needed to generate around 20 Storm to kill your opponent with the primary Storm win con in Modern, Grapeshot, the Rotpriest Ground Rift combo cuts that number in half. And if you have 2 Rotpriests in play, you only need to Ground Rift for 5 to kill your opponent. Is that situation magical Christmas land? All right, maybe. Can it be disrupted by a removal spell? Yeah, sure. But we're talking about comboing 2 1-mana spells here. It can't be that hard to pull off. Coming in at number 4 is Nahiri, the Unforgiving. Poor completed Nahiri, but wow, has her terrible fate yielded an exciting new card. Nahiri is a 5 loyalty planeswalker that costs 1 generic, 1 red, 1 white, and 1 hybrid Phyrexian red-white mana. Nahiri has the completed mechanic, meaning you can cast her for 3 mana and 2 life instead of 4 mana. If you do, she enters the battlefield with 2 fewer loyalty. Nahiri has 2 abilities that add 1 loyalty. The first is one that likely won't come up very often in Modern. Up to 1 target creature attacks a player next combat if possible, though it's worth mentioning that this can protect her from being attacked in combat if your opponent only has 1 creature. The second +1 reads, discard a card, then draw a card. Thank you, Wizards of the Coast, for wording this ability so that you still draw a card even if you don't have any cards in hand to start with. The ability that's most exciting on Nahiri is her third ability, though. For 0 loyalty, Nahiri exiles a creature or equipment from your graveyard with mana value less than Nahiri's loyalty. Create a token copy that's a copy of that creature or equipment. The token gains haste. Exile it at the beginning of the next end step. The coolest thing about this ability is that it doesn't cost Nahiri any loyalty. You can keep doing this over and over again, for as long as you have fodder in your graveyard. Create a Stoneforge Mystic token, tutor up an equipment, say a Cauldra Complete, and then immediately activate your Stoneforge token to put the equipment into play. The Rummage ability on Nahiri's +1 fuels her 0 ability, both by providing you a discard outlet for dumping your creature into the graveyard, and by allowing you to create tokens of increasingly larger permanents. Now, despite the fact that she can target equipment in your graveyard, it's unlikely that her best use case will be equipment tokens. Nahiri will be best paired with creatures with great enter the battlefield effects such as Seasoned Pyromancer, which conveniently also dumps creatures in your graveyard for Nahiri, or perhaps the Evoke Elementals from Modern Horizons 2. Obviously, it'll take a little bit of setting up to get her loyalty high enough to pull off this trade, but evoking a Fury, dealing 4 damage divided among your opponent's creatures, then using Nahiri's 0 to create a Fury copy that deals 4 more damage to your opponent's creatures and attacking for 3 double strike damage is a powerful sequence. And of course, Nahiri is a gold card that's both red and white, meaning she can be pitched to both Solitude and Fury. Coming in at number 3 is a card that's reminiscent of a beloved 1-mana legacy staple, and that card is Skrelv, Defector Mite. Skrelv Defector Mite is a 1/1 Phyrexian Mite artifact creature for 1 white mana. Skrelv has Toxic 1 and cannot block. Skrelv also has an activated ability. For a white Phyrexian mana, you can tap Skrelv to give another creature you control Toxic 1 and Hexproof from a color of your choice. That creature cannot be blocked by creatures of the color you chose this turn. If this ability looks familiar, that's because Skrelv is very similar to the card Mother of Runes. Both creatures can protect a creature you control from removal and push the creature through blockers. But whereas Mother of Runes can be used on defense, making one of your creatures able to safely block your opponent's creature in combat, Skrelv's ability does not work that way. Skrelv also cannot target itself the way Mother of Runes can. What's interesting about Skrelv is we already have a Mother of Runes type card in Modern, Giver of Runes. This was from Modern Horizons 1. But the reason Skrelv could make a splash in Modern is not because its effect is unique. Rather, Skrelv could see Modern play specifically because its effect is redundant. Having access to additional copies of Giver of Runes means you will draw a protection creature more reliably when you want it. So now you'll be able to more reasonably build a deck around having a Giver of Runes on turn 1. This is the type of card that the mono-white Death and Taxes deck, currently only a fringe player in the Modern meta, would love to have access to. I wouldn't be surprised to see this deck add 2 to 3 copies of Skrelv on top of the 4 Givers they already play. Skrelv is also a card that could actually replace Giver of Runes in the Hammer Time deck. Technically, Skrelv is a worse card than Giver of Runes, but not by a lot. Neither Giver nor Skrelv can target themselves with their own ability, so that aspect is a wash. Giver can give protection from colorless, while Skrelv can't, but in Hammer Time, pro-colorless is not a very good thing to give your creature, since it causes the hammer you've equipped to the creature to fall off. Giver has 2 toughness, which matters in a meta with Renin 6, but Skrelv is an artifact which synergizes with Blacksmith's skill, Urza's Saga constructs, and Pure Steel Paladin's Metalcraft ability. And on top of that, both having Toxic 1 itself and granting Toxic 1 to another creature is not irrelevant, especially given that Hammer Time plays Inkmoth Nexus and often wins through poison damage. Skrelv may look worse than Giver of Runes on paper, but the more you think about the applications the little Mite can have in the decks that already play Giver, the easier it is to imagine it finding a home in Modern. But there's two cards that stand head and shoulders above all of these, including Minor Misstep, and they are very likely to actually see some serious Modern play. What are they? Well, coming in at number 2, it's Tyvar, Jubilant Brawler. Tyvar is a card that could put a fan-favorite creature combo back on the map in Modern. This Jubilant Brawler is a 3-loyalty planeswalker for 1 generic, 1 black, and 1 green mana. Tyvar's static ability reads, you may activate the abilities of creatures you control as if they have haste. His +1 ability untaps up to 1 target creature you control, while his -2 says, mill 3 cards, then return a creature card with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Tyvar feels like it was custom designed with Devoted Druid players in mind. The two biggest weaknesses of Devoted Druid decks are, number 1, being soft to removal, and number 2, needing to untap with a Druid in play in order to start using its ability. Tyvar solves both these issues in one go. You can curve Tyvar into Devoted Druid and Vizier of Remedies and start generating infinite mana immediately. Hold off on activating Tyvar's ability so your opponent casts a removal spell on the Druid. Tyvar can -2 to return the Druid to the battlefield. Devoted Druid decks tend to be pretty mana hungry and also play a lot of mana creatures in addition to Devoted Druid. Tyvar's +1 can untap a mana creature to effectively generate an extra mana. Tyvar is the most exciting card the Devoted Druid archetype has gotten since Luxiar, Glada's Gift in Streets of New Capenna. And of course, Luxiar can be equipped to Tyvar in a pinch to start beating down. Post-combat, after attacking with your creatureified Tyvar, use his +1 to untap himself, effectively granting himself pseudo-vigilance. Of course, the Devoted Druid deck is no stranger to getting new cards that could, quote-unquote, revitalize the archetype. Devoted Druid is one of the cards in Modern with the most combo potential that still sees very little play. But I think Tyvar might finally be the card that gives the Druid the resiliency and velocity needed to keep up in the fast-paced, interactive Modern meta. So what is the number 1 card from Phyrexia All Will Be One most likely to see play in Modern? Well, as we hit number 1, speaking of archetypes that seemingly get new cards constantly, how about a new card for Amulet Titan? The number 1 card in 1 for Modern is the Mycosynth Gardens. Mycosynth Gardens is a land that taps for 1 colorless mana. It can also filter for colored mana, but the best ability on Mycosynth Gardens is the 3rd ability. Pay X and tap Mycosynth Gardens to make the land become a copy of a non-token artifact you control with mana value X. In Amulet Titan, that means exactly one thing. Mycosynth Gardens becomes a copy of target Amulet of Vigor. While the Amulet Titan deck is of course more potent with an Amulet of Vigor in play, with 2 amulets in play, the deck gets turned up to 11. Whenever you play a tapped Ravnica bounce land, the land gets an untapped trigger for each copy of Amulet you have in play. In other words, each land drop equals 2 extra mana for each amulet. Consider the following turn sequence. On turn 1, play a Mycosynth Gardens and tap it to cast Amulet of Vigor. On turn 2, play Simic Growth Chamber, which untaps. Tap it for a green and a blue mana, then use the blue mana to activate Gardens' copy ability, making another amulet. Then return the Growth Chamber to hand. Cast Arboreal Grazer off the floating green mana, putting the bounce land back into play. It now untaps twice, floating 4 mana. Return Growth Chamber to hand again. Use 2 of your floating mana to cast Explore. Draw a card, then play the bounce land again, which again untaps twice and generates 4 mana. You've now got 6 mana. Cast Primeval Titan. Fetch Boros Garrison and Slayer's Stronghold. 2 untapped triggers enter the stack for each. Float red-white twice, then activate Slayer's Stronghold twice, targeting Prime Time. It's now a 10-6 with Vigilance, Haste, and Trample. Return a land to the hand off the Garrison trigger, making sure, of course, to leave Garrison in play. Move to combat, attack with Prime Time, search up 2 more lands from your deck, this time a Vesuva and a Sunhome, Fortress of the Legion. Vesuva copies Boros Garrison, putting 2 untapped triggers on the stack, thanks to your amulets. Use the double red and double white mana to activate Sunhome, giving your Titan double strike. And that's turn 2. 20 damage on turn 2. Any Amulet Titan player will tell you there's a marked difference in their deck's velocity when you're able to get a second amulet into play. While the turn 2 off Mycosynth Gardens requires a pretty specific turn sequence, the more common application for Gardens is boosting the consistency of the turn 3 double amulet kill. Essentially, it's less that Gardens is providing something the deck didn't already have. Gardens simply makes it easier to do the thing the deck already wanted to do. It seems like every year we get a new card that breaks Amulet Titan once again. Well, 2023 will be no exception, as Mycosynth Gardens is a perfect addition to the perennial Tier 1 Modern synergy. And there you have it. 5 cards that will be better in Modern than the new Mental Misstep. But what do you think about Minor Misstep? New format staple or overrated and worse than the other available options in Modern? What are some Phyrexia All Will Be One cards that you're excited to try out in your Modern deck? Let me know in the comments below. And remember, I'm giving away this Dominaria Remastered Collector Booster Box to 1 lucky viewer of my stream on Whatnot this Monday, January 30th at 3 p.m. Pacific. And I'm giving all of you, everyone, $15 credit to spend on Whatnot if you sign up for a new account at whatnot.com/invite/Tolarian College. It's $15 credit, spend on magic stuff. They have other magic stuff, but who cares about other magic stuff? Or just hang out with me while I stream, talk smack, and give away this and some other cool things. They're not as nice as this. This is the nice thing I'm giving away. It's $15 and maybe you get a collector booster. It's whatnot.com/invite/Tolarian College. Yeah.
Next time on Shuffle Up and Play.
Today, 2 titans of Magic the Gathering, commentary, coverage. The one and only Cedric Phillips. The other one and only Patrick Sullivan. And you chose the format and the decks. And the choice was Modern.
Yes, these are our cards. These are 100% my cards.
Let's let this be the last friendly exchange of this match.
Perfect. Deal.
All right, so second main phase.
Do it.
I'm gonna pass priority to you. I'm just trying to keep a clean game.
But yeah, I'm gonna get a basic island.
Wonderful.
Of the snow-covered variety.
Why is there snow cover lands in this deck?
Because they're cooler?
You're definitely not.
Okay, well, I would not play a creature.
Why? Well, like, do you have a lightning bolt in your hand or something? You don't know the number of personal grievances over the course of 20 years that are being aired out right now in between these communications.
20 years? Neither did I.
We've known each other for a long time.
It's true.